The devil is busy.
Welcome to the Real Drunk Show. We're dealing with Teddy Riley's 5G internet over here, but we're present. Welcome to the Real Drunk Show, where Dorothy Norwood's Shake the Devil Off meets Ice Cube's We Be Clubbing. Today's episode is Theology in Film, the Players Club. Now, a lot of you are probably tuned in and wondering, how can we talk God in the Players Club? And we ask that question because dualism is embedded in our religious and cultural practices. We basically divide everything into two categories, good and bad, spiritual and secular, spirit and the flesh, housewives and hoes. But in reality, our existences are much more complex than that. In reality, the stories in our sacred book look a lot more like the Players Club than what you find on Christian TV. And in reality, we don't leave God outside waiting when we partake in our secular activities. I want to invite you all to join in with us in this discussion. Tweet us at Real Drunk Show and use the hashtags Players Club Theo. And let us know that you're watching. And if you have any questions or comments throughout our discussions, use the handle and hashtags and we will include them in the conversation. Before we get too deep into this discussion, I want to give you all a trigger warning. In discussing the film and the theology that emerges, sexual violence, sexual abuse, and abuse will be discussed. If you need to avoid this dialogue or if you need to disengage at any time for your well-being, we understand. Please take care of you. And if you need immediate resources, visit RAINN, WAINN.org. Joining me today are three of the most amazing women I know. These women know culture, they know Black womanhood, they know film, they know theology, and they know God. I'm really excited to have this particular discussion with them. Before they, so we'll let them introduce themselves now. We'll start with Allyson. Let us know who you are, why you're here, what you're drinking, and who is your favorite character from the Players Club.
Hey y'all, I'm Allyson. I am from Atlanta in Pennsylvania. I went to seminary where I have a Master's of Divinity, so I studied sexual ethics and pastoral care. Basically, how can the Black church better respond to issues around sexual assault and sexual violence? I'm now in film school, which found my, follow my love and passion. So I'm studying images of Blackness, preservation, history, what are respectable images of Black folk, what images should be preserved, should have warnings, things like that. What I'm drinking, because I'm part of the Holiness Church and the saints always got something to say, is Jesus's first miracle, the wedding at Cana, and the last thing Jesus drank before he died on the cross and rose again for us in 3 days. Hallelujah. So I'm drinking wine. My favorite character is Diamond. Diamond has always been my favorite. That girl, Diamond went through a lot. Diamond went through a lot in 2 hours.
Diamond did.
Diamond's my favorite.
Diamond was going through it. Candice, what about you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Candice, and I am here in Detroit, Michigan. And I work in service journalism, which is basically ministry. If you look at my paycheck, you could tell that it is definitely just like ministry. And my favorite character from the Players Club is Dollar Bill, because I like all of my men to have a little bit of prosperity preacher in them. A little bit of Creflo Dollar just really gets me there. So, Dollar Bill.
Whitney
It's a
Fine.
controversial pick.
Okay, sis. Listen, I'm Whitney, Ms. Vaughn to you on social media. I am from East St. Louis, Illinois, but I've been in Atlanta since 2004. So at this point, we have and half. Like Allyson, I also hold a Master of Divinity from a local seminary here in Atlanta. I'm a PhD student in theology, ethics, and human sciences, looking at Black church culture and human sexuality. And similar to Allison's question, like, how can the church do better around sex and sexuality? I am legit drinking water tonight. I might get to something else, but yeah, I'm drinking water right now to get myself together.
Well, I am Kia. I am here in Atlanta, and I am drinking both coffee and y'all, I've been quarantined up in this house for, I stopped counting, probably 40 days, longer than Noah was in the ark. Oh shit, that's so long. Wow.
And with nary the lamb near you.
Right, like, wow. Okay, so yeah, I've been quarantined for a while. I'm all out of whiskey, tequila. I am down to absolute vodka and lemonade. So please pray for me.
Okay.
That's not great.
This is like 18 freshman year of college drinking. I'm better than this. I worked myself out of this position, yet here we are. Allyson, give us some context of the film Players Club. So shout out to Connie Chameleon on Twitter. She watched Players Club for the first time last night. And her question was, this is what y'all call a classic? So can you provide us with some historical and cultural context so that everyone understands why this is a classic movie? And while you're doing this, I'm going to try to get us back up on the website.
I did get a text message asking, hey, can you send me the link?
Yes, we coming. Yeah. Go ahead, Allyson.
Satan's trying to be busy trying to stop this conversation. Okay, so
it's the enemy.
We bind that. Okay, we bind it.
We come against it.
So Players Club comes out in 1998. This is actually the only film Ice Cube has ever directed. It is an Ice Cube film written, directed, and produced by Ice Cube. One of the advocacy flags I have is that we don't honor Ice Cube enough as a Black movie producer. Like before, Ice Cube has created 3 movie franchises: Friday, Are We There Yet?, Barbershop. So Players Club is Ice Cube's second movie after Friday. Friday comes out in 95. Friday's a big deal because we coming after all the Black gangster films in LA, and then Friday comes and it's not a shoot it up, bang, bang, pew, pew Black movie. So Ice Cube's second movie that gets greenlit is The Players Club, which he bases in Atlanta. He's written 13 movies. Ice Cube has produced 42 movies, but the fact that this is the only film he has directed besides 30 for 30 episodes speaks a lot. So this film is coming off in between when Friday comes out and Waiting to Exhale, and when we're about to get the Black, I'll say, upper middle class Renaissance boom. So it's 2 years after Love Jones, and then after Players Club, we get sandwich in the middle. We get The Wood, we get The Best Man. So the Players Club sits right in between that whole genre of Black films.
Awesome. I didn't realize Ice Cube had done that much movie work. And I think it's really significant. I forgot to tell y'all my favorite character. So this movie comes out in 98. By 1999, I am a senior in high school, pregnant, headed to an expensive ass college in Atlanta. I thought I might be Diamond at some point in time. So this movie really resonated with me at the time. I was like, look, if my parents kick me out, I might have to go and find this club that Diamond is working in to get through this schooling. But yeah, they were decent people, didn't kick me out. So, Allyson, you said Diamond went through a lot. Tell us a little bit about Diamond's story.
So Diamond gets pregnant apparently as a senior. As you reminded, she has on her African American Allegiance college shirt. They're back too. They're on Instagram. They got good stuff, but it's expensive. And it's interesting to me that Diamond's daddy, they didn't want to put her out when she got pregnant. They wanted to put her out because she was going to go to a nigger college. That's when he said, oh no, okay, you can be pregnant and go to college, but a nigger college and pregnant, nah, sis, I'm cutting the funding off.
That's too much nigga.
That's too much nigga. Okay, we can't. You can't have both. So Diamond leaves. She moves in with her baby daddy. And my favorite quote, she was like, and then he said he needs space or whatever. And so it looks like she's working at like a Payless or Rack Room Shoes, or what was it, like College Park Shoes. It looks like that's where she's working. And there are 2 strippers in there, and they recruit her to come work at the club. And she goes meets Dollar Bill. Dollar Bill looks at, he never looked at my face, and then hires her, and she gets her job at the Players Club. So she starts stripping from freshman year, and as she said, she gets all the way to her senior year without any drama. And then here come Cousin Ebony in the tradition. And Cousin Ebony is the precursor because it comes out 1 year. No, Cousin Ebony is the baby of Cousin Faith because Soul Food came out the year before. So it's a thing.
Look at this.
Don't let your cousins come up from the south.
Ebony is Faith.
Is Ebony the child of Faith and Miles, though?
No.
Okay.
They might be related.
No.
Yeah, same situation. And then it's like her senior year, spring semester comes and everything single pops off. And I'm making a new case that she might have had one of the worst 24 hours as a movie character. Because in 24 hours, her and Lance break up that morning. She go to work. She's almost assaulted by her former assaulter. Then the dude who, everybody know a nice guy who think because he spend money on you, he owns your body. He shows up to her house demanding to be let in. Then her cousin sleeping with her boyfriend, and now she's shooting guns off. This is 24 hours.
It was a bad 24 hours.
I'd have been shooting off guns too by the end of that.
So basically what Players Club is telling us is that men ain't shit because every man.
Except for Blue.
Except for, yeah.
Blue is my favorite character. Because Blue is like, whatever you own, that's what, as your friend, I'm going to be on that too.
Yep.
If you off that, well, I'm off it too. And I feel like that's the type of friend that I am. You want to keep stripping? All right. But you done? I'm done.
So
she had a good son.
Wait, say that again, Allyson.
She had a good son, so there was a good boy in the movie.
Yeah.
He did too much. Like they told Ebony, she's not working at the club. Why does y'all know that?
Connie said Ebony stayed on my nerves.
Amen.
So a lot of the drama that Diamond encountered was around her body and what she was choosing to do with her body, from going to the nigger school, and there was a man who was saying you can't go to that school. When she started to strip, her boyfriend who she met at the club had a problem with her body, with her showing her body and his friends having access to her. And there was also the consent issue between when she was passed out drunk and Ronnie sexually assaults her. What can we learn about like autonomy in women's body from watching this film?
I think one thing that we could learn is that there are several women that we know, even personally, who participate in misogyny, who participate in patriarchy, because for them, it allows them to they think it's allowing them to get closer to the power that they so desperately desire. That's just one that I think of.
Say more about that, Whitney.
I mean, look at Ronnie and Trixie, right? I mean, Ronnie and Trix. They were at this point old, washed up, but still trying to like, oh, I run shit. Like, you can't tell me what to do. I got this, blah, 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 blah. And so now they're recruiting other girls to come in, but they still want to like rule them. Basically watch like how many lap dances they get, how much money they're making each night. And if they're, in there making their money and not letting their money make them, then all of a sudden it's a problem. Because now I'm a threat to you, even though you're the one who's on a power trip.
So what we see happening is women trying to replicate patriarchal powers against other women.
Yeah, that's what oppressed people do.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
You know,
oppressed
like, yeah.
people. Say more. Keep talking.
So you either take the character of your oppressor and you try to build what they built, i.e., Black folks who are capitalists, or you decide to build, or I guess there are a couple categories. You could also decide to build something totally new, right? You can decide to live off a different grid altogether. And then some people choose sort of the middle ground of those things. But it makes a lot of sense that you would see two women who have also likely been assaulted, likely been treated terribly because of their bodies in the club, then try to pimp out the younger girls that come up under them. That's what they're taught to do. And that's also how they see the men around them acquire money. And money is power.
So Dawn makes a good point. She said Ronnie and Trix were some pimps.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because pimping is this...
It's an economy.
It's a combination of... Oops, sorry, I'm clicking too many buttons over here. Pimping is a combination of capitalism and controlling someone else's sexuality and autonomy. Mm-hmm. It's misogyny in like times two, like super misogyny going on.
It's a 2-for-1. Yeah.
But when Ronnie was having the conversation with Diamond in the shoe store, and she reminded me of someone in the Bible who we hold in high esteem.
Jesus?
Not quite Jesus. But she reminded me of Ruth. And she reminded me of Naomi, Ruth's mother-in-law, and the conversation that Naomi had with Ruth.
And it's
Allyson, you want to talk about it?
It's funny.
She pimped her out. She said, Naomi says, listen, sis, I'm old, it's dusted, it don't do what it's supposed to do. You young, we got to get out these fields. And in order for us to get out these fields, you got to use what you got to get what you want. And I remember I was taking a womanist approach to Christian education, and Dr. Maisha Handy at ITC, she asked us, she said, how can we praise Ruth and Naomi for using their bodies to get out some fields with Boaz, but then we dehumanize sex workers when they do the same thing?
Yep.
You can't. And then when you go to these church conferences and it's like, oh, got to get your Boaz. Okay. If we believe Ruth really used her body to get Boaz the way she did, according to the text, Naomi told her to wait until after Boaz was drunk.
Yep. So that's also sexual assault.
So if Boaz was a woman, we'd be calling it sexual assault. But the reality is y'all can't be having these conferences praising the sexual assaulter in the Bible for getting a man drunk and taking advantage of him to get out some fields.
Yeah.
So this is really interesting because the whole Ruth and Naomi thing, it happened during harvest season, and the men would go out and work, and then they would go back to their place. They would get drunk, pass out. And that is when Ruth was supposed to go and lay at her feet. But when we see this in Players Club, and we celebrate Ruth doing this because she secured her future, and she took her and her mother-in-law, and they went on and they lived a happy life without having a slave. But when we see this in the Players Club, we see Diamond passed out drunk, and Ronnie sexually assaulting her, and we can see that clearly as sexual assault. Is it the different in historical culture? Is it the different in sex, the sex of the victim, or is it just because this story is the story of Ruth, Naomi, and Boaz is in our biblical text, our sacred book, so we have to clean it up and make it nice and pretty?
Yeah.
In addition to making it nice and pretty, you also are dealing with the people who read the Bible very literally. So my friend Candice, since I've known her, she said, I take the Bible seriously, I don't take it literally. And I feel like so many people take the Bible literally that they can't even begin to even imagine, that sexual assault takes place in the Bible. Y'all know folks who be like, I didn't read the whole word. I believe everything that's in it.
So So here's the thing. I think it's important to realize that the Bible is not one book. The Bible is different documents written by different authors in different contexts across different places, different historical times.
Languages.
Yeah.
Languages, yes. So it was an Emory professor. I cannot remember his name, but he did this Theo Ed talk at my old job. And he said, we should treat the Bible more as poetry than one solid narrative.
Joel Lamont.
Maybe. I can see his face. White man, bald head. I can't remember him.
Well, that sums it up.
That's David Emory.
He studies for something. That's the only reason I was asking.
Okay. This was years ago, so I cannot remember his name. But that always stuck with me, and that was before seminary. But it changed the way I looked at the text. Instead of looking for we like to see it as one story that has one ending, but it's really a lot of separate stories.
But Kia, what you just said, so if you can treat the Bible as if it's poetry, that means that you can treat other books as if they are the Bible.
Yep.
Which means you can treat other works of art as if they're the Bible, which means that making a connection between the Bible and the Players Club is not a far stretch at all.
Right.
If it's a continuation of a story, you might get it in different forms, right? So if you can connect those two things, you can make so many things your connection to God, right?
So is this a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing if you're not afraid of it. And I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people are afraid of it. Like I had I think I had somebody explain to me, like, look at the Bible as an anthology of collections. And my best thing was I was like, oh, it's like how you get a new Disney movie every year. That's like a new book of the Bible.
That's
one universe, but all different stories.
That's
but I think people are afraid to look at the Bible critically because they're afraid looking at the Bible critically is going to change everything they believe.
Or it makes
and I think people are afraid of losing beliefs.
Yeah.
I just got a text message. Brent Strawn is the professor who says that about the Bible as poetry.
He is bald.
See?
When you said bald, I was like, no, that's not Joel Lamont.
No, it's not Joe. I do know Joe. Okay, so Jocelyn says, rape in the Bible? Who would have thought?
Who?
Somebody ain't read the Old Testament.
That's right.
Not only is rape in the Bible, but it is written that if a woman is raped, she has to marry her rapist. Like, the rapist still has autonomy over her body. Like, all of this is very much in the Bible. I remember after my first semester of seminary, I went back home, and one of my cousins on my Kojic side, they were like, so, what's the most fascinating thing you learned in seminary this semester? And I was like, did you know there were 2 creation stories? And I mean, I was just like so calm with it. And she was like, where did you learn that? And I was like, it's in the Bible. Well, what Bible are you using? And I was like, that was like my real intro to being like, folks really be like, this is my Bible. I believe what it says I am. And you know what's in there.
Yeah.
All right, Joel Osteen.
I do not repeat that phrase because that Bible says I'm a lot of stuff that I don't agree with.
I know, but people, this is my word.
I mean, it's easy to say that when you don't know what's really in the word or the context. And
which means your pastor can create marketing plans for your life because he did read it.
Oh,
right. Which means he can go through the text and create a marketing plan that works for his church and his parishioners and create a whole life of Christianity that does not exist inside that book. And we watch it happen every Sunday across this country.
I had to tell somebody about that with Leviticus and Deuteronomy. I was like, that was written for a hashtag Pacific people. Culturally, it was written for them. Now, all of a sudden you want to say, well, okay, we acknowledge that it was culturally written. We're only going to take away some of the things. So we can let up on the shellfish. We can let up on the mixed prints. We can let up on all of these things, but we're going to hold on to this over here. Make that make sense.
I got nothing.
I had a cousin that argued with me about gays and abominations while we were eating in Red Lobster.
Oh, not
We
your
were
favorite restaurant.
in but I'm like, how y'all gonna argue with me over abominations while we eating shellfish?
Shellfish.
Make it make sense. So your abomination on your plate is fine, but the abomination you're yelling at me about is not. Make it make sense.
Oh, we gonna get these crab legs.
Yeah, just be consistent. If either you gonna go with all of them or none of them, but just picking and choosing that bothers me.
Yeah.
That is so interesting because Ashanti says people interpret the Bible to fit their own needs. So we like to say it's in the text, but we pick and choose what we're going to follow in the text every day. You know, when Candice said preachers develop marketing plans for your life, it made me think about all the stories we don't. I'm sorry, Angie just sent me a message and said she's about to report us for shading
For shading who?
She said,
Her pastor.
don't go. I'm reporting all of them.
Okay, so but that makes me think about the stories in the text that we don't.
So flat. Oh my God.
That made me think about the stories in the text that we.
Sunday.
Wait, what?
Every Sunday he preaches the same sermon. It's just got a different title. He's gonna give you 3 points. It's gonna make you feel good and go on in Jesus' name.
But that's what a lot of us want, right? We go to church to feel good real quick.
Yeah,
we don't
need a motivational speech. Yeah, you need a motivational speech to make you want to get up on Monday. I get it.
Same. But I think a lot about this, the text that we don't hear preached. And what comes to mind is one of those rape texts, Judges 19, which is the concubine, the Levite's concubine. Who, so a quick synopsis of the story. She's the concubine, which means she's like second tier wife. She goes home to her father. We never find out why she goes back to her dad's house, but she's there for 4 months. And then the Levite finally decides, okay, I'm going to show up and get her. So he stays with at the dad's house for a while, and they finally leave. They leave too late, and they get they're in the city. Hospitality is really big in ancient Israel culture. So no one takes them into their house. They're out in the street, and someone finally finds them, brings them to the house. But then the men in the neighborhood start knocking on the door, similar to Sodom and Gomorrah, and they want to rape the man. The first thing that the man in the house does is he volunteers his virgin daughter and the concubine to the men instead of the Levite, the male guest. Someone, it says he, when I read the text, I assume that it is the Levite himself, pushes his concubine out. They take her away and they rape her all night and brutalize her. When I read this story, I always pause and I think, like, what are they doing while this woman is being raped? Because this screams rape culture to me. Because no one is intervening.
That's right.
I think about the scene in Players Club, though. As evidence raped, and like literally, they are standing outside the door, like, and then just gonna walk away. Like, man, I want.
And they knew it was wrong. Like they had shame on their faces, but not enough gall to actually stop what they knew was a violent rape.
So, why does that happen? What causes us to know that this is wrong from ancient days, clearly? What causes us to know that this is wrong and we still sit silently by as it happened?
I think because when we speak up, we would have to confront what's happened in our own lives and family member lives.
And we have some type of power and privilege. Because if we start equalizing and saying, I mean, I didn't commit that actual crime, or I didn't do X, Y, and Z. I can say above you at all times.
And it's interesting to me as I rewatched the movie that even though there are multiple sexual assault scenes in Players Club, only one is actually called rape in the
Yep.
movie, and that's
Mhm.
evidence. So it's like only the visibly violent is what's rape. Everything else is, you know what happened, we heard, I heard, and that's not gonna happen to me again. But the only thing that is say, oh, this was rape, was the visibly violent one. And I think that says a lot about rape culture as well as what we recognize as what is assault.
Mm-hmm. You're
Mm.
absolutely right. Yep.
Because we definitely want to pick and choose. I mean, we can see this off of Twitter any day. What is sexual assault?
Yeah.
Because this conversation has been going on a lot on Twitter in the past week.
Yeah, as long as we keep letting men run for president. Yeah. Then we're going to keep having this conversation. So, yeah.
I do appreciate that this generation, I feel, is like the most silentless generation I've ever seen.
Yeah.
They are not putting up, they not being quiet, they putting out pages, blog. Like, and I mean, I love my generation. We did very good to fight, but we didn't have even the guts that these kids have now to fight in the ways they did. They do
I
now.
just did a report for work for our end of the year report, and it was like, so what have you learned with working with your demographic? I said, I'm a millennial, but working with Gen Z, they are the generation that's literally like, we are taking life by the bullhorns.
Yep.
We're gonna ride it out. And I said, as a millennial, I felt like we rolled the line of, I'm gonna push back just a little bit, but not too much. And they are just like,
nope. Yeah, I managed.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Like you can't really just have like authentic conversation with them and they not take it personally. Like you're tearing down their life.
Yep. Yeah.
I feel like what Gen X, is that what like I'm on the cusp of, come before millennial? Gen X was like really frustrated with boomers, but they kind of like pulled back. Like they were like, you know, y'all are stupid, y'all aren't doing things right, the world that you were talking about doesn't exist, whatever. I feel like millennials try to start creating their own space within this world. Like, it's not working, I got to go out and build my own thing. But this Gen Z, right? Yeah. They are like, we are tearing everything down. Y'all left nothing for us. This is how y'all had it fucked up, and we're destroying it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can also get into
it. Gen Z has tools to access adult conversation early on. That's really good, because this is the first generation that has like always had access to information and the internet. And yeah, that's an interesting point.
Yeah, like I was raised up probably like y'all, stay in a child's place. Don't be over here listening to grown folks conversation.
Absolutely.
And like now that I'm older, I get it. They weren't trying to like keep me out of stuff. They were really trying to protect me, because there were just certain things I didn't need to know.
And I was always talking back. That's why I stayed in trouble. That's why I would stay getting called fast, because nothing. My brother and I were talking about this recently. My parents were our holiness, so they would set down strict rules. My brother would do whatever they say. They would set down the rules for me, and I'd be in there 12 years old. That don't make sense. Show me that in the Bible. I don't understand. No, I'm gonna keep fighting it. You just being fast. You sit down, be quiet. And then when I got older, because my mom said the same thing happened to her growing up in the Baptist church, her being silenced. When I got older, I realized is that adults will shut up kids just because they don't have the answers.
Yeah.
And that's not helpful. And the church does the same thing, no?
Yes. Same thing.
Absolutely. It's much healthier to say, I don't know, or let's figure this out together, than to say, shut up, because the question is still going to be there. Yep. We're still going to be searching. So another theme that pops up in, who said this was their favorite character? Kamisha said that he was a very good man earlier. Dollar Bill. Capitalism pops up a lot in the Players Club.
Yeah, sex is the first economy.
Oh,
it's the very first economy.
So I would like to say, neither Beyonce nor God approves of women with OnlyFans account having account managers. So I just learned that this was a thing this week.
What?
Digital pimps.
Yeah.
Digital pimping is a thing. There are account managers who market these women. Like, I thought OnlyFans was a feminist economy where you have autonomy over your body. But apparently there are men who are account managers, and that was not even Ruth's plan for. I mean, Naomi's plan for Ruth. Like, get all your money.
If you need another biblical example, Rahab didn't have no account manager.
Oh, she did not.
Rahab ran her own money, her own sex work, and was selling flaxseed out the top of her roof and staying in the wall of the condo, minding her business. And they'd be like, well, I'm like, and Rahab is still in Jesus' bloodline. She is named in the gospel. So I don't understand when people are like, oh, you got to dehumanize sex work. I'm like, but all the women in Jesus' ancestry, they all had questionable sexual history. They all still there. So if Rahab could still make it out the wall and be in the bloodline, what's wrong with Diamond?
Yeah.
What lessons can we learn from Dollar Bill about capitalism?
Pay back
what you owe.
Pay what you owe, unless it's student loans. Because I saw a tweet last night that said, I don't care what they doing with them student loans. I'm already forgiven. I've already forgiven myself. And
That's right. Yeah. God forgave me on the cross. I'm good.
Paid it all. All to him I owe.
That's right.
A crimson stain. But he wants. We can talk about colorism in the Bible too, but that's not tonight's conversation.
Oh. No, I'm curious now.
Because there's definitely a theme of colorism in this movie.
I mean, very basic, like everything that's dark is bad, is black. It just has like negative connotations. And I started watching Married at First Sight last night, and it's season 9 while they're in Charlotte, and there's a 27-year-old virgin on there, no problem. But she like kept highlighting the fact that she had to have the whitest dress because she is the most pure that she's ever been in her life right now. And I was just like, girl, what?
She's the most. So, okay, I have a question. If she's the most pure that she's ever been in life as a virgin who is preparing to get married, what is going to happen when she has sex with her husband?
I don't know what it means.
Where does the purity go?
And I think that's why so many Christian women face, it's called vaginomosis, where the vaginal muscles involuntary spasm due to trauma is either due to sexual trauma or a lot of it's due to psychological trauma. So there's a whole thing of Christian women who, once they get married, they're unable to emotionally, psychologically enjoy sex because in their mind, their body is dirty. It's something not pure. And so their body completely shuts down and they can't enjoy it.
And it's also the reason why there's such a high percentage rate of Black women being married or divorced or like remarrying. Because if they were brought up in the church, they thought they were doing everything correctly, and they didn't realize how much of their identity was wrapped up in what other people knew about their body sexually. So if you're part of a purity group, if people knew you were, sexually a virgin before you got married, like they knew all of these things, and then they come back from the honeymoon and they're trying to figure out like, oh my gosh, like who am I? They know that I've had sex, but it's not bad because I'm married now, but they all know that I've had sex. But now I don't even want to have sex that often because I don't want people to know that we're having sex. Like it creates all of these things. And women who have been like, we didn't even have sex on our honeymoon night because my body wouldn't even like allow me. It was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The church is doing a terrible job.
Yeah.
And it's because it's what Kelly Brown Douglas talks about in Sexuality in the Black Church, or is in the Dina Project by Monica R. Coleman. It's in one of them 2 books. And they talk about our bad theology is that we don't talk enough about the incarnate theology of God living in flesh and spirit being one. The body is good. And the one example I did, it set me free. I went running around my house when I first read it. And she said, if the body is so dirty and bad, then why did God wrap God's self and send it in flesh? Because ain't holy and pure. So your body's good.
Another
that is good. And that gets into the thing that I was talking about in the beginning. Like, why do we do that? What has caused that to be so ingrained in our theology, our religious traditions, and just our culture in general, when it's just not realistic in any way, shape, or form.
Well,
You have to remember that Black bodies in and of themselves have been historically taught to be bad.
Right. Yeah.
We came to this country like already disconnected. And so when then we're used, when our bodies are looked at, like the bigger a Black man is, like the higher his price is, the more children a woman has had, the more she can birth, which then turns into like this whole capitalistic cycle, right? So there are just so many components to this, like, yeah.
And then for Black folk, once we got free, okay, we're in slavery. We're told our bodies are dirty. We can't control ourselves sexually. We get free and we say, okay, what's the first way we could get a respectable image? We got to push ourselves away from anything sexual. So we going to wrap ourselves up in Wesleyan Christianity, Victorian style sexuality and holiness. And your body is for God, no sex. Everything is bad. Stay this way. And by the way, women, put on these jean skirts to your ankles. I don't know how a jean skirt make you more saved. I'm trying to figure that out my whole life.
It's a thick material that the dick really cannot penetrate.
Let me tell you, as somebody who grew up in youth camps, you can still do things in a jean skirt.
Don said you're going to make some male pastor's head explode.
Oh, I get yelled at by male pastors. I expect about every 2 years some male pastor corners me and tries to challenge me. I'm just used to it. I just be blinking like, okay, bro. Okay, bro. Okay, bro.
Pastors.
Yeah. So my daddy a pastor. I've been arguing with him since I was 13. Are the ones bother me? No.
So what does God think about sexuality? What sexuality is acceptable to God?
God does not care.
Oh!
I believe God
is shaking the table.
No, like, because I get asked this question so often, like, how do you find peace in like being a Christian and like still having sex? You don't feel like God? And I was like, no. One, because I feel like I'm wasting my time and I'm wasting God's time, because there are so many other things going on in the world that, like, who I'm choosing to engage with sexually, God is like not even concerned. What I do believe God is concerned about in terms of sexuality is how it's performed, as far as consent. Like, are all parties involved? I don't care if it's 3 folks, are all parties consenting, appropriate age. Like, those are the things I think God is concerned about. But the actual act, and no, not 2 grown people.
I believe that God, the Bible says the greatest commandment is love, and anything outside of love is not falls out. So to me, sin is anything that is done out of love, because love is the greatest commandment. So I believe anytime sex is performed out of love, it doesn't have to always be romantic love, but I'm like, if you can't look at another person in their eye and see the God in them and respect their body the way your body wanted to be respected, that's when God is upset. And guess what? A wedding ring don't create that, because there are women who are married to men who won't even look them in the eye sexually and treat their bodies as just a replacement for their hand. Yeah. That's when I think God is upset sexually, when you're not taking the needs to see about your other partner and about yourself. Or I think God also gets upset when we use sex to fill a void, not a sexual, I'm horny, I'm trying to fill a sexual void, but I'm trying to use sex to get in a relationship. I'm trying to use sex to get married. And that's what I tell purity groups. Like, purity, like, if you want to wait till you're married to have sex, that's fine. But don't think bartering your vagina is going to get you closer to getting married. That God didn't ask you to barter your vagina for a husband.
Hello, people.
It don't say that. God is not Oregon Trail. You can't show it with 3 sticks and then come out with a husband at the end of the trail. It don't work like that.
Ashanti said God cares more about if we are treating each other right, not who you're having sex with, which goes back to, it's about how we treat each other in the exchange of sexual activity. So basically what you're saying is a woman's sexuality does not belong to her father, as Diamond's dad thought. It does not belong to her man, as Lance thought. And it does not belong to God, as we are seeing here, because God's just not that invested of what we're doing sexually outside of treating people well.
Mm-hmm. And I think whatever you choose to do with your body is a conversation between you and God. Maybe God is telling you not to have sex because you're doing it for other reasons and stuff like that. But just because God told you not to have sex don't mean God told me not to have sex.
We two different people.
It's two. Everybody's two different people.
He's not sending out the same messages, sis. He's not.
So there isn't one blanket requirement around sexuality in our bodies. We have to learn ourselves.
Agency is the only thing.
You see how that's a repeated theme coming up in this conversation around autonomy, agency.
Because everything doesn't work for everybody. That's why Weight Watchers gives everybody different points. You got to figure out what works for you. And that's a conversation you have to have with God.
That's
who
right.
Are you sexually? And you have to figure out who you are sexually. Are you somebody who can have casual sex? Are you somebody who only needs to make love? Are you somebody who needs to remain abstinent? That's something you have to figure out.
Yep.
For your situation at the time and point you are in your life. Jocelyn said, always couched in I believe, so as not to make my interpretations everyone. That goes back to autonomy and being able to decide like what works for you.
You know what I found interesting in the Players Club as I was watching it? And I thought about how they showed the control of women's bodies in the Players Club. And I thought to myself, I don't know if there's any much difference over control of women's bodies from the church to the strip club. I just don't think there's much of a difference at all.
Are you saying that the pastor and Dollar Bill are the same people?
Which is what I said at the lead.
You did.
Trixie. Why do I keep calling her Trixie? Lord Jesus. Roxy.
Right.
I am not here, y'all.
Ronnie or Trix? Who are you talking about?
Trix are similar to a lot of other women in the church as well. Who are trying to, climb up the ladder. There have been times when I've gone to preach places, and I'm very aware of what I'm putting on when I go to preach.
Ooh, that's a whole other show.
Like, I'm aware. I don't care if it's me preaching in jeans, overalls, t-shirts, whatever. I'm always going to, be together. Having other women come up to me and be like, here go your lap scar. And I'm like, not my kneecaps? Not my kneecaps, y'all. I remember the first sermon I preached at a church here in Atlanta. I wore a bad 2-piece suit number, had my pantyhose on, control top. As soon as I sat down, they started passing it down to me because I was sitting in the pulpit, and I literally folded it up and placed it next to me. Because if you have an issue with my kneecap, that's something you got to deal with. That ain't got nothing to do with
it. That's right. There's an OnlyFans page for you and your kneecap issue, but it cannot be here on this pulpit. It can't be.
Whitney, you just found your quarantine
only
money.
Knees.
How much you?
Only knees. Let's go.
Content.
Cause the churchmen, they get excited about knees
and arms. I got fussed at. Me and my mom got into it real bad when I preached this summer because I was going to preach in something sleeveless, and she was just like, "You can't be in the pulpit with your arms out." And all I kept saying was, "Their arms, their arms,
their arms,
their arms." But if there is an OnlyFans arms account, let me know how much that rate going, because I will slap this turkey meat up on that camera for $2.99 a minute. All right, let me
and you just
think about dress codes and how they manifest in schools and how our daughters learn this from a very young age around, like, you can't have sleeveless shirts in school, and dress codes are patriarchal and they're sexist, and they're all about the control of a woman's body in order not to entice men.
But
the high school that I went to, we had a very strict dress code. And I think after my sophomore year, they made it a universal one. So like nobody could wear tank tops or sleeveless shirts. Nobody could wear shorts, so no cargo, khaki situations. And I went to an all-white high school, so like they love them a cargo short and some Birkenstocks and a
What
sweat.
did they wear?
So I mean, essentially everybody wore, because this was 2000 to 2004, so everybody was in like button-down shirts with the Argyle cardigans and khaki pants, like, and jeans and polo shirts.
But that doesn't do anything if you somebody like me, where you shake no matter what you in, and then you get in trouble because your polo too tight.
That's
your khakis
right.
too short, your thighs too
So
much.
Candice just brought that up. Dress code is racialized for Black girls and women, though.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That reminds me of the story of it was a Black woman on a plane in leggings, and they asked her to put this was a couple of years ago. They asked her to cover up her behind because she was in like leggings, exercise pants, and it was deemed unacceptable for her to board the plane. And I travel in leggings all the time.
Oh.
Yeah, no. There is also, by the way, a dress code in this movie as well. Because you see Diamond, like the first time she goes into the club, she's basically wearing a swimsuit, right? Like she's got her 2-piece swimsuit on and a sarong. Like she was going on the beach in Jamaica. Helm Girl was going to sandals, okay? By the time you start to move through the movie, you realize that just like every other character, Diamond has acquired a character and she dresses like that character. And her character is soft and feminine. So they dress her in like pinks and purples. She's always in these very soft colors. Her hair is never overdone. Her makeup is never overdone. But when you have someone like Roxy, her dress code is like this sort of boss, bitchy pimp thing, right? So you have her in like literally a cowboy outfit, right? Like in like you could see like this whole like playing on building their characters through their wardrobe. That's the same thing we do in church, right? Like women start dressing like first ladies because they want to become first ladies. Roxy, I mean, Diamond starts dressing like Roxy. Is that her name? Because she wants to become more like her, right?
I messed it up. It's Ronnie and Trixie.
Right.
But I kept calling her Trixie.
I also watched Chicago today, so this is confusing.
Hey, that's my movie. That's my movie.
It's all coming together.
What you say is so real because I started preaching now like 13, 14 years ago, and I'm going back and watching my early sermons, and every one of them, number one, I hate the color pink. I always have, just since I was a little girl. But all of my early preaching, I'm preaching in pink suits. And I think it's because I thought, all right, girl, they're going to accept you more as this wild red. If you stand up, and like up until the past couple years, I always preach in a suit. I'd be sitting there stiff arm like this. But I thought that's what would make me more acceptable as a female preacher. So sometimes we do take on those roles when we do try to change our dress when we want to be accepted one way. Because we all know that one girl we went to school with who was out there, and now she in the church and she in a jean skirt. And you like, sis, what you do with all your clothes?
Or hell, the one girl you went to church with who was wearing her club clothes to church.
Right. Throwing a sweater on. It was me. I was her.
Oh, remember when Ariana Grande did that and they
I was sitting there.
And they destroyed her.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was sitting at that funeral.
It was her knees and arms. It was her knees.
And you know
and then the pastor felt her up anyway. And they like, oh, she shouldn't have had that on. No, keep your filthy hands off her.
Can I say something controversial? And it's gonna be controversial. I'm fine with it.
Of course. This is the place for
So I was at the funeral. So I'm sitting at the funeral, right? And when she walked onto the stage, you know, I'm sitting in a black church in black ass Detroit at the blackest funeral ever. And I'm feeling a lot of church judgment in my spirit. It was a spirit of judgment on me, is what I'm saying. So when the girl walked out on stage, I said in my head, well, that goddamn skirt is too short. I said it. I did. If I would have had a prayer cloth, I would have read it up there.
Let me also state that the reason I know I reacted that way is because I knew that she had no idea of like what was about to come. It definitely was more of a protection thing, and like
they didn't prep her at all.
No, she had no prepping, and like nobody was gonna be able to save her in that moment.
You got to be prepped for a black pastor at all times. When a black pastor has cameras on him, you got to be on high alert. And nobody put that baby on alert. And she walked out there like a lamb to the slaughter.
And they took advantage of it too, which is also what made me mad.
Absolutely.
Lauren asked a good question around dress codes. Is it really about not seducing men, or really just about control?
Oh, it's about control.
I think it's both and, because let me scroll up so I can see the question.
Oh, hold on.
Here it is. Or is it about not seducing men? Because like we just said, men will then say, well, she shouldn't have had X, Y, and Z on, because then I wouldn't have acted as such. So it's definitely a both and, in my opinion.
Oh, Candice says, I remember being told by the first lady that my wearing red to church and in general was throwing off a wrong vibe to God. And I had more vibes of the devil.
Black Jesus hates the color red.
That's why I always preach in red. Just that's why I always preach in red, just to mess with folk.
Black Jesus does hate the color red. I read it once in a book that I bought. Black Jesus hates the color red. And so we have to abide by that. We can't go around disappointing him like this.
But then I'm like, if red is so bad, why is all of Jesus' words in red?
Because that's direct.
But we can't have women seeing themselves in the image of God now, can we?
Yes.
I ain't got nothing to throw with this line screw, and I can't throw it.
Yes. Right. Lauren said, God is vibes. That is the most.
Girl, you gonna see that on a t-shirt in 3 weeks. Watch.
Right. Let me tell you something.
3 weeks next Tuesday.
When I'm at a good house music set, and I'm in it, and I've been in it long enough, and that floor feels good, and my body feels good, that is as much a religious experience to me, and it's definitely a vibes experience, but it feels just as good as if I hear a good sermon or hear a good choir. It's the same feeling. It's the same euphoria.
Me in New Orleans.
Yeah.
A pastor told her mother that was a church elder that she couldn't wear an ankle bracelet. Like, what?
Do you know how sexy an ankle is?
But Jesus wore, my dad and I got in this argument because he was like, I don't want you preaching in pants. And I was like, nigga, Jesus wore a maxi skirt. So I don't understand a whole maxi dress to the grave. So I don't understand how I can't wear pants. Like it's critical. It's the critical thinking that just drives just a little bit, y'all. Just think a little bit critically.
But then if you do that, you have to really think about it. And if you have to really think about God, it freaks you out.
Yeah.
If you got to do it for yourself, you're like, wait a minute. Some of this shit seems crazy, right?
Sitting with some stuff, then you start being like, wait a minute, this shit don't add up.
So wait, it's easier to just believe Angie's pastor, Joel Osteen, and the feel-good stuff than it is to really have these critical conversations about God, where it's not just good and bad and we have to choose one, but where we're in the middle real life stuff.
Here's the thing. Let me ask you a question. So you had a hard work week, right? Your kids got on your nerves all weekend. You get to church on Sunday and you got two options. Pick one. You can talk to your pastor will talk to you about sexual assault thoughts or themes in the Bible, or he will encourage you to feel like you can make it through the next week and that you might not kill your kids. Which one you gonna choose?
We need to have a balance.
Huh?
We need to have a balance.
I agree. But what I'm saying is, because this is the marketing plan we've given people, right? And also, this is what I'm willing to pay for this.
Yeah, if at the end of the week, I want drive-through church. Okay, give me my Happy Meal message. Give me my toys. Send me on my way. I'll see y'all next week.
Yeah.
Because I have to go out in the world and deal with hell. So just make me feel good.
That's right.
In this moment so that I can go and deal with these crazy
ass people. We only want the euphoric part.
Yeah.
We only want the euphoric part of God, right? We don't want the fire and brimstone part.
How is that? Is that helping us? Like, what kind of society is being produced?
Look
from
around you.
I was gonna say, look at the world now.
Look at what happened in Lansing yesterday here in Michigan. As there are literally 1,000 or more people have died in this city of COVID. But it's a black city, right? Somebody cares in Michigan about the black city and the black folks that are dying inside that black city. Instead, they would rather put themselves and everyone else who had to work in order to secure them at risk. Like that is that exact thing, right? Like we don't see God in each other. We don't care.
Tiffany brought that up. She said thinking about God for themselves is why so many are struggling in this quarantine.
Because you got to sit with them.
You've been fed a theology that gives you a happy rainbow unicorn God, and we're not in a happy unicorn rainbow God at all. So if you've never had a message that showed you anything about liberation, you don't understand God in this quarantine. You only see God as being your Santa Claus and doing for you. And I think and when we have that type of God, that's why so many people have so many crises of faith. Well, I thought God was going to deliver this. Where did you read that God promised you that God was going to do anything because you did 3 prayers?
That's right.
Where did y'all get that?
They take fasting and praying like to a whole nother level, and it becomes like this whole genie experience.
And that's that goes back into that fasting. Fasting's not a barter system. I see people fast. Fasting's not a barter. Like this whole we can barter with God to get what we want. That's dangerous theology.
Every year during Lent, people like try to out-Lent the other person. Like, well, I'm not eating chocolate during Lent. I'm not drinking no sodas. I'm not having potato chips. Like all of these superficial things that literally the day after Lent is over, you going right back to it. So what was the point? Like you just wanted to do like this whole
performance.
It's a performance. It's like Lent to me is a Christian-a-thon. Like who can out Christian who? I'm like, it's 2 things I give up for Lent. Lent and people. That was the only 2 things I give up for Lent.
I give up giving up things for Lent every year.
Yeah.
Y'all can have it. And there's also a verse in the Bible that says you're not supposed to tell people when you're fasting, which we have completely lost during Lent because we have to announce and we have to show our struggle. And I think that's also like Jesus. It's a New Testament. It basically says if you perform your fast, then you've already had your reward.
Or we don't think through our fast. We had a minister come to our church and said he will never have his church do the Daniel fast because the Daniel fast is expensive and too many of his church members live in food deserts where they can't get access to fresh fruit and vegetables.
That's right.
So we don't even think through the stuff we're doing of, okay, myself personally as a struggling grad student, I can't afford to buy fruits and vegetables every day to get closer to God. I'm going to have to get closer to God over these Cheetos. We got to figure something out, but we don't think through our class implications when we say things, our mental health, and like when we say things like everybody stand up in the church. Everybody can't stand. Or thank God you woke up in your right mind today. I didn't. Now what?
Come on.
I had a question, but I lost it. So I'm going to go to Tiffany's comment. She said, come on, liberation theology. Who wants to explain what liberation theology is? Because a lot of us don't have a liberation lens to our theological beliefs.
I'm looking at Whitney.
No, because I'm trying to see if my Cone book is right here so I can give you definition.
Well, I don't have mine. Where are mine?
I always like to think of liberation theology as God of the oppressed, God of the children of Israel. God being saints, looking at the children of Israel like, all right, I'm awake. Y'all been crying out long enough. What happened? Let me set y'all free. Like, it's always looking at how can God always being on the lesser side of the least of these, or what Jesus talks about, the least of these. So if your theology isn't setting free the least of these, it's not liberation, it's safe space. It's a lot of reasons why I'm not fans of multicultural churches or other churches spaces. I need a liberative God. I mean, I love practical theology too. I love them both, but I need God to free me from some stuff. You know, because some days I'd be like, a little gnashing of teeth. That don't seem like it's going to be too bad out here. So things like that.
Candice says, theology that frees you from patriarchy and oppression.
Yeah, this is the exact type of journalism I try to practice. It's why I do not work at a national newsroom. It is why I have chosen to practice local journalism, to support local journalism, and to build when I felt like I was in newsrooms that were basically what churches have become, right? Like, you have to report this way. You have to preach this thing this way. This is how we do it, as opposed, and also we only preach to really impact the people that pay our tithes here. Like, that's what we're really preaching to. Right. And that's the same thing that newsrooms do. They are catering to their subscribers. They're catering to the people who buy the trucks that they advertise in their newspapers, as opposed to really thinking about, if you provide a service for folks that you see at the very bottom of your society, then you can provide a service for all.
So I have done organizing work, and that is like the foundation of how I think organizing should be done. If you organize to build a society that works for the least of these, which is a term I hate, but people get. And I think Howard Thurman says, those whose backs are against the wall, the most oppressed in society, the Black, female, disabled, queer person. Like, when you think of all the person that's most marginalized, when you build a society that works for them, everyone with more power and privilege than them, it's going to work for them as well. So you really have to have that lens around whose back is against the wall, who is the most marginalized in this situation. How can we make this world work well for them? And then everyone else is taken care of.
That's right. And that's why.
Oh, go ahead.
Go.
Can you speak more to, because I think sometimes we have to unlearn church phrases. Speak more to why the term "the least of these" is problematic.
Because it creates, in saying that, it creates a hierarchy of people and personhood. So we automatically understand the least of them. Okay, I'm helping someone below me. But we should be more concerned with creating a world where we don't have to help anyone who's below us, because we're all here together in the center. And even, I think a lot of times we are like, ooh, I need to speak for the marginalized people, the people who are more marginalized than me, instead of saying, ooh, I need to bring them to this table so they can speak for themselves. And I think that goes back to what we said earlier when we talked about Diamond and Trix, like trying to gain some power in playing out patriarchy in their roles. I think we do the same with oppression, where we want to be good people with power and privilege, and we want to talk about people who have less power than privilege than us. But what we should be more focused on is creating equity, where we're bringing them and they have space to create and care for themselves.
That's good.
Lauren says, why is Lent the only time we care about folks' health in regard to fasting? Is a great way for your cells and immune system to rebuild.
That's a real thing. In general, in the church, we don't care about physical health. That's true in how we talk about sex. It's true in how we feed each other inside of churches. The body, the physical, but the flesh is not centered at all in churches.
But when we create this dualism where it's the spirit and the flesh, we are always talking bad about the flesh. It's kind of hard for us to also say, ooh, you should take care of your flesh.
Then you got to put pound cake in that.
I do know a pastor, a very popular pastor, who had his church fast outside of Lent. It was to help him stop having sex with other people in the church. You know,
I fasted for the same thing. Me too, Pastor. Me too. Didn't work.
He wanted help to stop having sex with people who weren't his wife. So
then he need to go on a sex fast, not a food fast. See, that's the thing. The fast has to match what you have a problem with.
He
That's
said,
like
now
me
the
saying, I'm an alcoholic. I'm gonna go on a salt fast.
The whole church can have their ribs. You having sex with people you're not supposed to have sex with.
he said, but if I don't eat no chicken,
Go.
then I can get the taste of cooch right out of my mouth. It can be removed. It can be removed. That's funny.
My God. Help us.
So are y'all saying you should not ask your church to fast with you? Look,
Like if he
my
said,
sister-
"Okay, church, we gonna go on a sex fast together, so I can stop sexing," that I understand. I understand. Sign me up. Whatever's gonna help you sit your butt down.
Stay with me. I hate her. No, goodness, he is not from Guest. Oh my goodness, that was the funniest thing I had ever heard.
That's
like
hilarious.
the entire church has to fast for you.
To stop having sex with people who aren't your wife.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, you want to talk about men who don't want to own their shit? Well, there's a thing for you. So this pastor didn't want to own his shit. Dollar Bill didn't want to own his debt. And now look at what happened to everybody's life.
They don't
Because you
burn
didn't want
them.
to own your stuff.
Dollar Bill said they fucking with the church's money.
With the church's money.
Right? Dollar Bill said it. You can't. Yeah.
So I have a closing question. It's kind of a big question. What does the Players Club say about Black women's bodies? What does the Bible say about women's bodies? Black women's bodies? Can we say Black women's bodies with the Bible?
Well, that's what they were talking about.
So they were talking about us.
And what does God say about Black women's bodies?
I feel like Players Club and the Bible are very much in alignment.
Wait, say that again for the people.
No, I feel like the Players Club, and I think because I literally just watched the movie again last night. So I'm like just thinking of different stories, many of which we've already shared, that, you know, are parallel from the film and the Bible. Women not being able to have control over their own bodies, like somebody else always having to be able to tell them what they're supposed to do. And I think one thing that I do like about Diamond's character is that once she realized that she wanted control over her body, whether that was from Lance, whether it was from Dollar Bill in the club, whether it was her daddy, like she didn't mind like breaking off from that so that she could become the person that she wanted to be. I feel like there are some women in church who, you know, have been a diamond in some type of situation, whether that's climbing up some type of ministerial leadership or what have you. They're trying to do all of these things so that they can work themselves up to get to a certain point. And for some, they're like Cousin Ebony. They like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get there. Like Diamond, who are like, I went around that tree one time.
Yep.
I learned my lesson. Let me go ahead and that way. Now, as far as what God says about our bodies, I don't think they're always in alignment with the other two.
Wait, God is not in alignment with what the Bible says?
I think God's not in alignment of what the parts people have picked out the Bible. Because going back to two creation stories, we always talk about the first one where it says the woman came from the rib of Adam, but we don't talk about Genesis 1:27 that says man and woman were created in the image of God. In the image of God were male and female created. So if we're created in the image of God, that means God loves our bodies, God loves our flesh, and that means that God loves us exactly for who we are, with what we have, where we are. And I think a lot of us are waiting to get into a certain place in life, or, you know, playing the Christian-a-thon, waiting to get a certain spiritual level for God to love them. But God loves your raggedy ass now. Simple as that. So I think God loves our bodies. Do the church and do the world. I hate saying the church and world. That just
I know.
Like, does the church and everybody outside the church love our bodies? No. But God does. And I think somehow we got to find a way to reconcile that conversation.
Candice?
Yeah. So I think a lot about the women who raised me, right? And or not just the women who raised me, but like the women I grew up with, right? And so much,
communal aunties.
Yes. And sisters and cousins and all of that stuff. And so much of how they saw their worth was in how men valued their bodies. And so when those men who they trusted or sometimes did not need to trust, however it went down, found no value in their bodies, and they found no value in themselves, right? Because there was no honoring of the God in them, right? There was the removal of God from them. And when you remove God from a person, you remove their soul. And so what I saw were often a lot of soulless women who were constantly trying to chase their souls in things and drugs and alcohol and partying and all of these things, right?
And it goes back to what Allyson said earlier. When we remove the God from other people, then we relinquish ourselves of being responsible.
That's right.
For treating each other.
That's right.
No, we're supposed to treat the other person.
That's right. And that's why that a man can live in a house with a woman and beat her on Saturday and take her to church on Sunday. Yeah. Right? And so when I think about those women, and I think about how if someone would have just honored the God in them, that's it. Just to like me.
Just one time.
Just one time, right? How much trauma they would have avoided, how much pain and suffering they would have avoided, right? How many things could they have gotten right had someone just honored their God? So yeah.
Wait, is someone's fire or smoke detector beeping?
No. I don't even know who this Dan Lamar
I think so. Okay, so Dan Lamar just said, and I was like, is someone beeping that I don't hear? He said, since we're all quarantined, man, we talk about fire safety. Our research has shown 9 out of 10 American households have smoke detectors that need new 9-volt batteries. So I don't know if he's trolling us or
Can he see that my thing is down? Uh-oh. No. I'm going to Home Depot tomorrow morning.
He said, so if you're beeping,
this is hilarious.
Or church coming from a smoke detector, it needs to be serviced with a new 9-volt battery. And don't forget your carbon dioxide detectors too.
Thank you, Dan.
Well, you know what? Thank you, Dan, because this is about keeping Black women's bodies safe.
Did you see that? You see how he honored the God in you by keeping you safe?
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
And now Dan's stuff is coming out.
But I think it's so interesting, but I think it's a lot of work in trying to honor the God in you when people have told you the God isn't in you because of how you use your body.
That's very fair. That
is a lot of hard work to put that spirit and flesh back together. I mean, that's therapy. That might be taking some medicine pill, like whatever it is. But that, I think we got to start having a conversation of what does it look like to put your spirit and flesh and reconcile them back together and seeing the God in you.
Yeah.
And you can't even reconcile things that never were reconciled in the first place. Bring back together. So if you start from a place of already being disconnected, trying to get there is going to be like polar opposites. That is going to take some intentional work because you're having to learn how to coexist in a body that has never been taught that being one with these multi-sides of ourselves is acceptable. Like we have to have our church selves, we got to have our club selves, we got to have our selves. Like all these things have to be separated. And I tell you often, I don't like for my food to touch. So a styrofoam sectional plate is my jam. Like I love it because I don't need my juices touching. But my life doesn't need to be lived like that. Because when we live our lives like that, it creates so much extra work. It's literally killing us that we're trying not to let green juice touch the macaroni and cheese. We're not trying to let the cornbread get wet, all this other kind of stuff. That's not the same as establishing boundaries. Let me be clear. Let me be very, very clear. That's not the thing. But trying to live like, no, I only do this over here and I only do this over.
You got grown folks who don't know their parents and their parents don't know them because they can't bring them their whole selves home.
Yeah.
And I try really hard to bring my whole selves in everything. And I try really hard to acknowledge that God is with me in all places. So when I was watching this movie and preparing for this discussion, I was thinking, like, what does it look like when you walk into the Players Club, Magic City, Body Tap with God? Like, is that possible? And what I came to, and y'all can give me your feedback, is it allows you to see the women who are performing a service as God's children, as human beings, as more than sex objects. So you can have this mutual exchange of entertainment and even sexuality without seeing them as an object, because God is here in the midst of this.
Yes,
And I have to see the God in this person.
But in doing that, then you also have to have the mindset that you're not going in trying to change them.
Or save
people who, that's what I mean, like change and saving them. So you have a lot of people who do like sex work, and their whole mission is we need to get them out of the strip clubs. This might be the job that she actually wants. Like, stripping, for 35 years. But if she's like, you know what, I can do this for 5 years, pay this, stack that, boom. If she has no issue with that, you don't need to come in and say, well, I'm representing this organization and we really just feel like, we need to take you out of this situation. No. Because if this woman is able to put money in her pocket to take care of herself, to sustain herself, any other responsibilities that she may have, you removing her from that will actually be more harmful to her than saving her.
It might also be where she finds her spiritual and physical liberation. Right? Like that's also a real place. And if she's happy, and if for some, I'm sure for somebody, like it's about more than just money, right? Like it's not just about the money. It's about how they feel when they're on stage. It's about how they honor their body, right? Like, listen, we honor our bodies in all sorts of interesting ways.
And that goes back to, it has to be individual and about you and your personal sexuality, and not one blanket requirement for all people, all women.
Exactly.
Yeah. We try to make God like policy. Like we try to do the same thing to God that we do to governments and to cities, right? We try to create all these policies around it. And as we know, even in government, that blanket policies do not work. Right. The same way the Bible as a policy, and that's how we treat it. We treat it as a document of policies, cannot work across a stretch of people. That's just not how that's not how life works, right? There are too many different situations in which something wouldn't apply. You wrote the bill thinking, this will cover most people. Well, we know that there are always people left out of what we think will cover most.
Especially when you're not writing the bill for the most marginalized.
That's right. You're writing it for kings, and you're writing it for queens, and you're writing, right? So if you're writing for those folks, then the document turns out a lot different than if you were writing it for poor folk.
Yeah.
And another thing, back to what you said, Whitney, about saving people. When we try to save people, that's just us trying to control them. It is another form of controlling the female body and not giving them autonomy to make their own decisions.
I have to catch that shit in my do-gooder ass all the time. Right? Because as a natural do-gooder, I stay trying to like make things better, and always it doesn't require me. Like some things are just gonna be what they are. And it doesn't have anything to do with me. Like I need to remove myself. And I have to like really check myself on that a lot.
Lauren says the church also doesn't do a good job with a theology of care for the person. Say someone leaves sex work, the church isn't really helping them take care of themselves and their responsibilities.
Just helping them find shame.
The church is, we don't understand care because the church has been taught care is only in the context of saving, and that's not care. It's just not. It's not.
No.
Because I always say, I remember my last ethics project when I left seminary was about the church and abortions, and whatever my ethics question.
My sermon. I wrote a sermon last week on that.
And my question was at the end is like, it doesn't matter where you stand. What is the and the grief counseling you're giving to people who've had abortions, both male and female? That's the church's responsibility. Are you seeking the care to support? Bump where you stand on the aisle. Where's the care to giving to people who have had abortions?
Yeah. And that's a really great point to bring up right now, because is the church ready for the influx of trauma they're about to get at their doors when they do eventually open? What is happening? Right. We know they aren't, right? I worry all the time about folks who are going to take what has happened here in Detroit the amount of loss to their church's door, and that is all they're going to get. If your pastor and their team is not prepared for what's about to hit that door,
no one's prepared because the leadership is traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
We all just gonna be trauma bonded together in the church, crying and singing "It Is Well" until it's not.
I mean, if you listen to it enough, though, things do start to get well.
Things do, right?
They really do.
Put on some Richard Smallwood healing and keep it pushing.
That's
And
right.
like, and having these conversations, realizing that like Jesus ain't coming to save us. I know people don't want to hear that, but if Jesus ain't came back at this point, Jesus ain't like. That's why there's other shit to be worried about. And so we have to pull together like as a community because we're going to be the ones.
That's right.
That's out
That's
here.
right. I kept my virginity waiting on Jesus. I just knew he was going to come the day I decided to give my virginity up. I knew it.
And I always think about
I eventually got rid of it. I shouldn't say kept. It's gone.
And I always think about my favorite Color Purple quote when I think about church is when Miss Sophie says, "You better bash Mr. Head in now and worry about heaven later."
That's right.
We need to do now. Heaven. It's stuff we got to handle now.
I think about Game of Thrones and when Jon Snow died and they asked him
Somebody
like, where did you
my driveway? Excuse me.
And you need me to exit you out, Candice?
I think so.
Okay.
I'll be back.
All right. So I always think about Jon Snow and when he died and they asked, once he came back, they asked him like, what did you see on the other side? And he said, nothing. And I think about like, what if on the other side is nothing? And all we have is what we have now. Like at some point, we have to be responsible for what is going on in this world.
And instead of just waiting, like, oh, I don't have to worry about what I eat. I'm going to be in heaven. I don't have to worry about what I do. I'm going to be somewhere else later. Like, it's just, it takes responsibility off of what you need to do to care for people now, which is what Jesus said.
Jesus called on us to do two things, love God and love people. And we are failing miserably at both.
Because Jesus also said, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think we fail at loving people because we don't know God to love God. Like the idea of God that we have, I'm not sure if that is. It's often not the God I know.
And we fail because the rest of that verse says, love people as you love yourself.
That's yourself.
And we always forget that part, that the Bible requires us to work on loving ourselves first.
And a lot of people know how to love themselves. So if I don't know how to love me, if I don't know how to treat myself right, there's no way that I can treat my sister, with integrity, with compassion, if I don't do those same things with myself.
So that's really good because I'm thinking about quarantine, and I know the pastor at the church I work with, he is going on this thing where loving our neighbor means staying home, which is good. But when you add to that loving your neighbor as you love yourself, and as you're caring for your own body and your own wealth, like, yeah, that's good. Oh, we would have to recognize each body, including Black and brown bodies, as human if we loved other people as we love ourselves. And that includes the female autonomy, and that includes female autonomy with that.
Yeah.
And all types of female bodies, and that's a conversation for another day.
Oh, yes. 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 And we're talking about different cis female bodies and trans female bodies. And, yeah. Y'all are so good. Y'all are so good. Candice is back. Are you ready, Candice? Okay. If I can figure out how to bring you back. So, any last thoughts, closing thoughts? Hold on. I didn't bring Candice back. I bought that picture that was supposed to be on at the beginning of the show that's still trying to load. Any closing thoughts?
I love what Candice said earlier about different texts and sacred texts. Because, I'm somebody, I'm not going to lie. I don't read the Bible. I don't enjoy it. I don't like it. I don't pick it up. But I find that God gives me the same message in film, in TV, in media, in songs, in conversations. So I believe that, during this quarantine time is a time of reflection to figure out what are your sacred texts? What are the ways that God speaks to you and talks to you and gives you lessons?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, folks is outside my house. I'm like, y'all go
You see,
home.
folks is tripping.
Like, where is this court? It's 10 o'clock. I'm sorry.
It's these
Whitney,
DoorDash drivers.
Whitney, any last thoughts?
I'll share something that I shared in a devotional that I did for Spelman earlier this week. Is that I really think that we're in a season of stillness, both and the unknown, and it's okay to sit still. I feel like so many of us are trying to fill our days with more stuff that once this quarantine is over, we're going to be so exhausted because we were like, everybody, well, this you need to be getting your LLC. You need to be getting your business license. You need to be doing this. No, like sit down. Acknowledge that, God is good, but God also, where are you? Like, there's some crazy shit happening right now. And if you are a God that is omniscient, that is omnipresent, that is all knowing, you could have stopped all of this. So it's that both and the unknown of, I just don't know. I just don't know. And so many people, I've had conversations with line sisters who, have shared how they repeat to themselves daily, God has not given me the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And I was like, you're so busy trying to suppress your fear and the unknown that you're actually creating more anxiety.
Come on now.
I'm not saying to completely give yourself over to feeling overwhelmed and being fearful, but at least acknowledge that this is how I'm feeling.
That's right.
And I don't know.
That's right.
And I don't know if God knows.
So
okay with that, and truly being okay with that. So that's the last thing I want to say.
So that reminded me, last week in class, they were talking about lamenting. And what I realized is I'm not sure, and they were talking about like our religious traditions and where lamenting fell into that. And I realized I'm not sure if my religious tradition and like what I've grown up knowing has ever even made room for lament, because we're always trying to get to, but God is here, but the good is here, instead of sitting with the pain and the hurt and acknowledging that this hurts and I don't know where God is. Whitney.
So this is the crux of Christianity. Think of Holy Weekend. From Good Friday, we completely skip over Holy Saturday and right to the resurrection.
Yep. We can't deal with that.
We cannot deal with death. We can't deal with the stench. We can't
and the unknown. That's right.
We can't deal with, but we do know that he got up. And I'm not saying that we don't find rest and joy and completion in that. But between Friday night and Saturday, some stuff happened.
Come on now.
And for what happened Friday night and all day Saturday, Sunday wouldn't have been possible. So why are we over that? Automatically get to Sunday.
Good Friday services should just be designated as lamenting services. Because when I preached Good Friday this year and I looked at it totally different, I was like, this shit is sad. Like there's nothing like all 7 last words are sad. This is a sad, grieving day. We should be allowed to sit at the cross with our grief, take it to the boulder, sit until Saturday, and then find a way to release it. Well, you don't never really release it, but find a way to hold it, carry it better on Sunday.
If your homie just died on Friday morning, your homie died. What's that get together gonna be like on Friday? That's what church should feel like.
Questioning, dang, but we just saw him though.
But we just saw him. He was just at the Last Supper.
Okay, that's what we should get. Who got the body? Who got the body?
Who got the body?
So Allyson, Whitney, Candice, we are committing to holding a Holy Saturday service next Easter.
It will certainly be a brunch. It
I'm
most certainly
down.
will.
A lamenting service. Hand me a tequila, let me cry.
Yes.
Listen,
No, don't play with me.
No, seriously,
Don't
because
play. I'm a
I feel
wailing
like
woman.
we would be much better if we learn how to sit with our lament
yes, Lord.
and to recognize that space as holy as well.
It's
As
And you know
holy.
what? And there's a movie scene that always makes me think about the power of lamenting and holding space to just lament and grieve, even though I think it's one of his worst, is Tyler Perry's Why Did I Get Married To? When they just showed up and sat with Janet while Janet just wept and cried. They didn't do anything else
Mm,
but sit on her, let her wail,
mm,
let her cry, let her feel. And that, even though the rest of the movie to me is but that scene to me is always so powerful. It's how many of us just leave spaces to just sit with our sisters and just let it out.
Let me tell you, or open the space for them to begin that. So
Mm-hmm.
when my mom died, I was 26, 27 years old. I remember, right? It was very sudden. I'm an only child. I was unprepared. And
mm.
about 3 days after she died, we were at my grandparents' house in the basement. That's where I live. And my best friend walked up to me and she said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" She hadn't left my side since, that morning. And she pulled me into the other room and she said, "I love you, right?" And I said, "Of course." And she was like, "I would never say anything that's hurtful. I love you so much, blah, blah, blah." She was like, "You have to take a shower. You have to take a shower." And what had happened is that my mom died on a Monday. This is now Thursday morning. And I looked at her and I said, "I feel like if I let the water hit my body, my skin will fall off." Because that's like how much physical pain I was in.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time I said that. Like, I hadn't realized that I wasn't bathing. I hadn't realized that I felt this thing. And the second she opened the door, I was in it. I was like, well, if I let this water touch my body, it's going to fall off.
Mm.
And she said, no, no, it won't. And she turned the water on and I took a shower.
But
But Candice,
you did that in sacred trust with somebody who was strong enough to hold that for you, because you couldn't do it for yourself.
Nope.
You couldn't. So for you to even acknowledge that I need some help.
Yep.
And whatever that manifested into.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll say,
go ahead, Allyson.
That's one thing that always sticks out about Ebony in the movie, is that no matter, even though her and Diamond had fell off that beat, Ebony knew she was in trouble and Ebony still called Diamond.
Yep. She knew she could call her too.
Mm-hmm. And Diamond still showed up.
Yep.
Even though she didn't really want to. She was on the
She didn't want to. But she took Blue and she showed up for her sister cousin no matter what. And that to me speaks volumes about woman and sisterhood despite anything else.
That's right. That's right.
Candice, I just want to say what you just shared delivered someone, because someone is watching this and they've been in quarantine for longer than Noah has been on the ark, and they haven't had a shower since Monday.
Yep.
And now they heard your voice and they heard, "I stink." And they didn't have anyone else to tell them that.
Yeah, no, it's a real thing.
We celebrate with them as they go into the shower.
The grief funk is a real thing.
Yeah.
You don't have to live with grief funk.
Mm-hmm.
You are delivered.
Candice, do you have last thoughts? Was that your last thought? Look, I can't even remember now.
That was my last thought. We'll make it my last thought.
Okay.
Just, wash your ass. Wash your ass.
I just want to remind people that Diamond throughout the movie was surrounded by misogyny and patriarchy. And at every turn, she resisted it. She resisted it with her father. She resisted it with Blue. Or I'm sorry, not Blue, but Dollar Bill.
Yeah.
She resisted it with Lance. And you do not have to be victim of your own oppression. You have the power to resist it and to stand up for yourself and the autonomy and the love and the care of your own body. Like, God created women in that second creation story. We know God created man and woman together. We are equal in his image. And we can stand in that and resist anything that comes against that, be it the church, or the strip club. Thank y'all for joining us today. Y'all can see why I brought these women on. They are like 3 of my favorite people in the whole wide world. They're so smart and they know all these great things. So make sure that you keep in contact with us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on the web, realdrunkshow.com for the web, Real Drunk Show everywhere else. And we won't keep you waiting this long in the future, hopefully. We'll see. Y'all have a great night, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.